Hi and welcome to Mind 123. I'm Chantal Broderick and I'm here today at the beautiful Gwingana Retreat on the Gold Coast hinterland in Queensland, Australia. Our special guest for today is psychotherapist and relationship counsellor Jonathan Swan. Jonathan, welcome along. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Chantal.
Today we're going to be talking about the 3 C's that make up a great relationship. Can you talk us through those?
Yes, there's 3 C's that make up a great relationship but also go towards healing a relationship. And they are communication, connection and compassion. And the 3 C's, communication, connection and compassion, are interdependent and interrelated. So they all matter and they are all important in a relationship. Usually when we meet for the first time, connection is natural. It just happens. There's the hormones, there's that, that vibe, there's that joy in meeting each other and enjoying each other's company. And so naturally you care, you're interested, you're curious, all that good stuff is there in a relationship. So kind of communication just happens. It just flows along, right? But over time, things happen in a relationship. There's external stresses or there's internal stresses that happen in a relationship. And they fracture that bond. They fracture that connection. They don't break it, they fracture it. It kind of eats away a little bit of that connection. And then what happens is when that fracture occurs, we kind of fall back into old habits of communication or ways of interacting that are part of who we are and what we bring to all our relationships. So when that happens and the communication is not there, then it exacerbates the breakdown in the connection. The fracture actually begins to rupture even more. So you can imagine this happening over time, that with each, the more stresses there are in a relationship, like financial or business or family, young families are often very difficult, So they lead to, that breakdown in the connection, then the communication, and then when we don't communicate well to heal the relationship or heal those ruptures and fractures, then we kind of get into a very dysfunctional pattern of relating, and it kind of gets worse and worse and worse until we find a way to kind of rebuild it. And the experiences of compassion, like care and nurturing and attention and all the good things that are there in a relationship, also tend to be impacted. So we don't hear our partner anymore. We're kind of not available anymore. And the more that happens, the more threatening it becomes for us in a relationship. And so we go back into those reactive patterns. It's a bit like that fight or flight. We give up on being aware and conscious of what needs to happen in a relationship, and we resort to fight or flight. And that's where everything breaks down. So for a relationship to heal and to grow, we really need those 3 C's. We need communication, connection, and compassion. And they all relate with each other, and they're all dependent on each other.
Do you find that when someone comes to visit you, that it is generally one of those areas that they need to work on? Is it all 3 that most people need to check in on?
Yeah, good question. It's actually all 3, but it's the connection that I'm focused on. It's that bond. Because if the emotional bond, if that connection is ruptured, then there's a breakdown in communication, and then there's a breakdown in those experiences of compassion, all those good feelings in a relationship that we depend on and rely on, because we need that feeling of security and safety in a relationship. And when that's taken away, or we perceive that it's taken away, it becomes threatening. So when it's a threat in a relationship, we tend to kind of go into those reactive states rather than more responsive states.
And do you find, because we're going to actually break down each of these 3 areas in another video series, so we can dive into it in a little bit more detail, but in most cases that you find, if they do go about and work on these 3 areas, relationships can regrow and reform and reheal?
Yes, definitely. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. I see it in my practice. The approach I take has very good outcomes because it is focused on that emotional bond. It is focused on how do we restructure and recreate the bond, because that's the key. Once the bond is healed and recreated, then through good communication, then love, care, acknowledgement, validation, and all the things that we need in a relationship naturally come into it. So I frame them under compassion. All those feelings of compassionate feelings for yourself and for the other then become part of the relationship. So we turn what was a negative interaction into a positive one.
And have you dealt with cases that have seemed like they're a long way gone and perhaps one partner feels as though there isn't any hope, but you've been able to rebuild even in a quite severe situation?
Yes, as long as both people are willing. Because if one person isn't, then you need the two people to heal a relationship. You need two people to grow a relationship, and you need both people to heal a relationship. So, I've worked with relationships that are 20, 40 years in length, and there are some very entrenched patterns there, habits, but they can be turned around with the right kind of awareness in what's actually happening in the relationship, the pattern in the relationship, and then how do you change communication styles in order to contribute to a better, more positive relationship.
Wonderful. So for anyone that's been listening to this overview of the 3 C's today and they want to learn more, then they can watch on for our other 3 videos. We're going to take a deep dive into those 3 C's. So Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome, Chantal.